And thank you so much for the invite. It's cool to be here. I'm always flattered when I have the opportunity to speak. So thanks for the ask. Yeah.
Well, we're really excited about the various experiences you guys bring to the table. We're going to start out with a little bit more specifically, since you're in such various roles. What is the role of the superintendent in HR in your particular experience?
Well, for me, I am the HR. I have been in Nebraska. I've taught in small schools. It's D1, D2 across the board. So in that respect, any time there's been hiring, any time there's been anything that's associated with human resources, I've been the one to do it. So in that respect, the only time that that I'm not specifically in that role would be working with a partner in terms of, okay, what do we want in that position? Who are we looking for? I reach out to principals, I reach out to teachers, you know, in terms of sometimes having them sit in the room. Certainly the principal is there when I'm interviewing somebody. But as far as making the final determination, I always make the, and then everything falls out from that.
I'm lucky in that I work for a larger district where we have a dedicated HR. We have an assistant superintendent for HR, Dr. Renee Hyde. We have a couple of directors. We have specialists underneath them. I'm rarely involved in hiring and firing decisions unless they're at a fairly high level. I do sit in on all principal interviews, all directors, and then certainly assistant superintendents. I'm personally making that choice. Again, I really don't have that much direct experience in HR. A lot of what I've learned along the way. I didn't have a lot of formal training. It is fascinating to me, and it's arguably the single most important thing we do, in that if we're going to be an effective school district, we have to have the best and brightest at all levels. Teachers first and foremost, but our building level leaders are obviously critical. Custodians, paras, go down the list. So it's a critical task. It's just one that, again, I probably don't have as much direct experience as some other people sitting in my lap.
All right, I'm probably about in the middle of some of the folks here, so we have about 3,400 students, so we're definitely smaller than Andy. And I've been in both worlds, but at Ralston, I do have an executive director of HR who is Dr. Mike Ruprecht, who does a really good job with that. And so my part is, whenever possible, when folks come to our school for an interview, I spend a little bit of time with them, and I share with them, and I wish I would have brought it along now, what we call our stewardship pledge. So I was about 3 weeks into the job as superintendent, and I had one of my teachers write to me and say, so what are going to be your expectations? And I thought that was a tough question because I'd never really thought about it. And so what I did is I put some thoughts on paper, basically of what we expect of everybody, including myself, and just a whole lot of different things. But the number one thing that stands out in there is that you're going to be a fierce advocate for all of our kids, all the time. And so that's what I share with them. And I share with them that, you know, when you come here, your job is going to be really important because we have a lot of kids with a lot of need, and we need great teachers. But just what those expectations are, as far as, and I feel like it's important for us to start that onboarding before they even have a job. That they know this is the culture we expect, this is what we want you to embody if you're going to be at our school. And quite honestly, if you don't feel like you can, you know, step up to that level, we probably don't. It's probably not a good marriage for us to start out with. We have some very defined, and I know Andy does too, and some others, some very defined processes for a person to make it through to an interview, some different tools that we use and whatnot. When they come on campus, they'll meet with me for a short amount of time. Then usually we let our principals make the final decision. But at our school, all decisions have to be cleared through me before they make an offer. And I can't remember in 5 years that I've ever said no to somebody what they want to do. It's had a lot of checks and balances, but I don't know. The buck stops with me when things don't go well, so I just want to be able to say, you can do it. So
Well, you know, I started, like I said, this small school like Milligan, and had a couple small schools put together, and went to Missouri. I went to a school of 1,100. My last school in Missouri was, 2,100, and they were rich, and I had 3 assistant superintendents. I mean, it was, you've never seen a place like this I was at. They had a $9 million event center, better than the community colleges, better than SEMO. I mean, it was ridiculous. Money was everywhere, so that's the way to go out.
I remember that, thanks.
Oh, none of that stressing. Can we get a new boiler? Oh, what are we gonna do? None of that. Oh my gosh, it was lovely. So, but the role of superintendent HR is that first you have to let your administrative staff, and in small schools, there's not very many, but in a big school, it's quite a bit. I had a lot of administrative staff. You have to let them know the expectations, and you have to communicate that through demonstration. And you also have to be able to set a vision for the district and let them know that the people who are going to become wheels, cogs in this great machine that we're building have an integral part to play and know what that role is. So the expectations are strong. One of the things I did very, very much mentoring in the fact of the strengthening the interview process itself. When I was doing these interviews and stuff, I went to somebody like Kirby, who was at Millard. Smart guy, did, look all the hiring he did, and talked about it, and they said the overall truth in interviewing is to ask for detail. And the more detail a candidate will give you, the more truthful his response is. So that's an overall guideline for interviewing. And then, of course, I was integral in the legalities of the process, making sure that my staff, when I let the principals interview, don't be asking the questions you can't ask. Don't be putting yourself in a position, or don't put us in a position where we're going to say discrimination, because you didn't ask the same questions to the same people, you didn't score their responses, you didn't give them a chance for feedback, but you didn't ask inappropriate questions as well. And that's a big part of protecting your district. And that's the #1 role of the superintendent: protect the district. And that doesn't mean protect yourself. Protect the district, no matter what. And so everything you do is with HR is protecting the district and the kids by getting the best you can get, people who pass all of the background checks, people that have no malice in their heart. The interview process, though, for me, because I'm an English major, and gosh, do I know stuff. I know stuff about writing and stuff, and so I would often be involved in the hiring of English teachers, because I would give them a quiz. And I would give them paper with 8 sentences and say, tell me some errors on these papers. And then I'd say, now tell me why the answer is whom and not who. Tell me what's wrong with is because sentences. And I'll tell you what, it really weeded out the candidates. I don't know this stuff. And I said, well, yeah, you don't. But that's okay. Why don't you go back and learn it and come back again if you'd like to be an English teacher. So that was very easy to score, and there's no discrimination on that. So I took an active part on that. As far as the math goes, I put my 2 cents in on a math teacher, but I didn't make them solve algebraic problems or anything. But I did with a computer applicant one time, business teacher. I took him down to a machine and said, make this dance. Show me what you can do. Oh my gosh, he didn't know what the mouse did. I said, well, thank you for coming, and let that go. So anyway, really, you can be as hands-on as you need to be. The more faith you have in your administrative team, the more autonomy they can have. But certainly, you have to train them, because the buck stops with the superintendency. You have to train them in the legalities, you have to train them in the thought processes, and you have to give examples of really good interview questions. So I would ask an interview person, how do others, on a scale of 100, how do others rate your performance? And they'd think about it for a second. Hopefully, they'd think about it for a second. And then they'd give me a number, 86. And then I didn't care what number they said. What were you thinking? What was your mental process? What averages did you do? How did you come up with the number 86? Why not 84? Tell me what you were thinking. And boy, that really lets you know somebody's cognitive ability. And then you'd also say then, when I said others, what groups were you talking in your brain? Who'd you think of? Did you think of the students? Did you think of the peers? Did you think of administration? Did you think of the parents? Did you think at all? Did you think? And so that was really those types of questions. Not what would you do, because everybody will say that, oh, I'll do everything. I'll be wonderful and I'll be compassionate. I will care. But ask them what they've done specifically and make them challenged cognitively so that you can see how their brain works and if it does. And then if you do, you go on to the next question. Otherwise, you say, oh, thanks for your time, and let it go. So that's more of that's enough of that.
As you all know, HR is a beast. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle as you look at HR, from interviewing to benefits to firing to staff recognition to retirement, all kinds of pieces to it. You know, big question I'd like to ask each of you would be, how do you build a culture that values HR within your school board?
Within the school board.
School
Within the
board?
school board, yes. Yep.
Okay.
And whoever wants to start.
Well, I'll give it a run to start out with. You know, our board has to approve, assuming it's up to they have to approve our hires. And so, first of all, I think number one that's really important is that you have built a great trust and a great relationship with your board, because the last thing you want to do is push something across what you would consider to be the finish line, and then it's not past that finish line. So we spend time just talking about our processes with the board. You know, how does a person get to a certain point, all those kinds of things. We're in that time of year right now where we're trying to adjust, you know, how many math teachers do we need? How many social science teachers do we need? And so we talk about that a lot. You know, my board is one that likes to know a lot of stuff. And so when people are leaving, you know, they'll have questions once in a while, why is this person leaving us, or whatever the case may be. And so I don't think you can do too much in always building that capacity with your board and those kinds of things. I think that's pretty important. So that would probably be, I'll leave it at that. So.
Okay. And building on what he said then, during the 23 years that I was a superintendent, there were many crises where there was a personnel issue, going from a teacher coach with a drunk driving arrest, so couldn't drive anymore, and the public was all upset because how come the girls driving, and this stuff was crazy. And I can go on and on, lots of things. Field trip to the library where the teacher went and had a hot toddy while the kids were in the library. I mean, lots of stuff. The stories I have are just really, really good. But the main thing was that you have to get across to your board is because they're out in the public and people want to know what's going on. What is going on at that school? And what's going on with Mr. Anderson? What's the deal? And that's a fake name, but my mantra to the board was, you tell them Sharp's aware of it and he's handling it. And that's all your response is supposed to be. He's aware of it and it's being handled.